Welcome to Oz Talk. Today we are celebrating one of the longest running and the greatest perk of joining the Oz Club, the Baum Bugle. It's the official journal of the International Wizard of Oz Club and mails exclusively to our members. First published in June 1957 as 4 mimeographed pages, the journal is now issued 3 times each year, spring, autumn, and winter, in a format of 40-plus pages with a glorious Ozzy color cover. Articles span all aspects of Oz with both popular and scholarly essays about L. Frank Baum and his writings, Oz films, TV series, stage shows, and other entertainment experiences, new and vintage Oz collectibles, the life and works of other Oz authors and illustrators, bibliographies of early edition Baum and Oz books. You'll also find reproductions of rare images, photos, artwork, and ephemera. Issues also contain reviews of new books, films, and live productions, as well as profiles of people, events, and news in the world of Oz. Basically, it's an up-to-the-minute Oz Bible. A Bugle subscription is included with annual membership in the Oz Club. You can even order back issues in our shop, all at ozclub.org. Oz Talk is, of course, brought to you by the Oz Club. Since the 1950s, the International Wizard of Oz Club has been bringing fans together. Once again, it's ozclub.org to join. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hola.
The current editor-in-chief, Sarah Crotzer. She's outstanding. She's a friend of all of ours. She's a longtime member of the Oz Club. Like us, was a fan of the Baum Bugle. We'll get to her in a second because she's joining us today to discuss all things Baum Bugle. But first, let's share our earliest memories of the Baum Bugle. Tori, what's yours?
So the Oz Club became something that I became aware of somewhere in the mid to late 1990s. I got one of their pamphlets in the mail after finding their website and ordered my first Baum Bugle. It was kind of life-changing because up until then, I hadn't realized that there were other Oz fans geeking out as much as I was. Now, I didn't become a regular member until my adulthood. But ever since, I have received my 3 copies a year, and it is just a delight. As you can see, I've marked them up doing research. If you're an Oz fan or hope to become an Oz historian someday, this is a really great resource.
My first memory of the Baum Bugle was when I had won like a little random contest though, and they shipped me out a copy of the Baum Bugle one. It was like around, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember the date offhand, but it's like the People magazine for Ozians though. It's worth it. Trust me, it is worth it.
I first became aware of the Oz Club through the Del Rey paperbacks, which my elementary school library had. And back in the 80s, you could actually like flip to the back of the book and it would actually have a note from Fred Meyer talking about the club and where you could write to get more information. I was unable to join when I was that young. However, when I was about 10 or 11, finally, my mom gave up. She's like, okay, this Oz thing's not going away. Now I'll drop the money for you to be a member. And like Tori said, I love getting the Bugle. They're great for research. They're great for keeping track of collectibles because sometimes we publish checklists and collectible information. For example, the winter 1991 issue is one of the first issues I got. A friend sent it to me before I was a member because it had all about the Oz Swift's peanut butter glasses, which I was currently obsessed with. And there's this really great resource that has a checklist of all the different variants. So if you're a collector and you love things like the Wizard of Oz Collector's Treasury by Bill Stillman and Jay Scarfone, I recommend getting the Bugle just because it has many features like that.
Very cool. Garrett.
Okay, so I, a little similarly to Zoe, discovered the Oz Club really young through The World of Oz, which was a book published around the time of Return to Oz. And it had a little sort of blurb about Baum and the club, and it had this one pictured specifically. So from like a very early age, this was like the one I really, really wanted because I associated it so strongly with the club. And as an adult, it's great because it, kind of like Zoe said, this one's got information on Japanese editions of the books, and it reprints some of the artwork. So it's really cool to have for both the artwork and for the, oh, well, this is an edition that I need to track down. And then more recently, we even have the fabulous issue from the Return to Oz 35th anniversary that has all sorts of behind the scenes stuff, all sorts of art that had never before been published. And Sarah the current editor, did a remarkable job working with Disney to pull it together.
Yes, I like Zoe and Garrett also came across it in the back of a publication. It was the Del Rey books. And that's when I first joined the Oz Club when I was 10, went to a convention, loved the Baum Bugle ever since. I mean, I have so many, like Tori brought out a stack earlier when we were talking offline. There's just so many, but I love it since Sarah took over as editor. I mean, just the covers have upgraded and they're gorgeous, and you just see it covers everything. I mean, just even on the cover stories, everything from high fashion to memorabilia. There's also for the children the Oz Gazette and things that are going on, which she brought back, which had gone away for a while. She's doing such an incredible job. But for me, I felt really excited when I got to be a part of. I never thought as a child that I'd be a part of the Baum Bugle, and then when I got to attend in New York City opening night of Wicked, the editor-in-chief at the time asked me to submit a review, and I did. This was the first Baum Bugle I was in with my review of Wicked, and then I shared my personal stories with the Wiz Live and Oz the Great and Powerful with the Baum Bugle. And so for me, those are sort of like pinch me moments in my lifetime that I was like, oh, I got an article in the Baum Bugle, and it is something that is open to everyone. And we'll have to ask Sarah about how people can pitch ideas and submit article ideas also for that. So without further ado, let us welcome our special guest, Sarah Crotzer, current editor-in-chief of the Baum Bugle. Sarah teaches film and English, and as the current editor-in-chief of the Baum Bugle, she's committed to providing new bugles with the same intriguing content and wide range of appeal as any classic issue she read back in the 90s as a child.
Hi, it's so good to see you again. Welcome to the internet, oh mistress of books.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. What is this strange little box you have me in?
So you have been an absolute essential piece of the Bugle. What has surprised you most so far about your role as editor?
Oh, I think what surprised me most is just how much fun I have. I mean, when I was a little kid and I would get the Bugle, I would, this is back in the dark times when we still got snail mail, and it was exciting. And the Bugle would come in an envelope, and you would take it out, and I would just be like, ooh, what's in the Bugle this time? And I would open it up, and it would be like it was full of buried treasure. All these things I'd never heard about before. And that kind of is what it's still like. When I work with writers, when they send things in, I learn about all sorts of new things that I'd never heard about before. And so in a somewhat more grown-up way, I get to do exactly the sort of thing that I love doing as a kid. And I wouldn't have expected that. I would have expected by now that I was like, oh, it's another Bugle. But it's not. It's really exciting every time I get to work on a new article.
And the Bugle covers so many varied topics surrounding the Oz fandom. And I was wondering, what was or is your favorite topic to read about yourself when you read the Bugle?
Well, it's a good question. It's a hard question, Tori, because, and you know this, the Bugle covers not just a lot of ground, but a lot of very different interests, right? I often think of it covering really distinct groups. Like you have people who are really interested in history, and you have people who are really interested in collectibles, and you have people really interested in sort of creative endeavors, right? And I like some of all of that stuff. But what I like the best is when someone can write something that picks up on something I may have heard about once, right? Some little thing. And I thought, oh, that wasn't very important. But then they delve into it and it becomes this incredible new thing where I'm like, wow, I never knew that before. Those are always my favorite articles. And they really kind of leap out and surprise you when you least expect them. So that's my favorite.
How did you discover both Oz and the Oz Club?
Oh, well, how did I discover Oz? Well, many centuries ago. I was in kindergarten, like a lot of people, and we had a huge bookcase in our kindergarten, which was, probably at least one standard bookshelf. And on this one standard bookshelf was lots of paperback and small hardback books, ranging from Charlotte's Web to the Narnia books, things like that. And there was an easy reader edition of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It had an adapted Denzel illustration on the front, and I read it, and I found it very exciting. and I started pestering my parents about these Oz stories. And before very long, I had read at least 3 of them. I have the book plates to show it. I'd read 3 of them by the time I was about 6 years old, and continued hodgepodging them as I went on, going to libraries, visiting friends. And one day I actually made it to the upper elementary room of my school, and they had a Del Rey paperback by an author I'd never heard of before, Ruth Plumley Thompson. It was Kabumpo and Oz. And in the back of Kabumpo and Oz, just like Zoe was saying, there was a form to fill out for the International Wizard of Oz Club. And I was about 7 by this point, a ripe old age. So I convinced my parents to help me out, and I filled out the form, and it said, as I recall, it said, apply to Fred M. Meyer, Secretary of the International Wizard of Oz Club. So I thought it was like a job application. So I got on the computer with my dad, and I wrote Fred a letter that said, hi, my name is Sarah. I'm 7 years old. I can name all these Oz books, and I think I had a list. And at the bottom it said, and I also play the violin. And I put it in an envelope, and I sent it off to Fred. And Fred sent me a very nice letter back. And that was my introduction to the Oz Club, which obviously I got really into, because a couple years after that, I ended up at Ozstravaganza.
Oh,
Cutest little scarecrow in the world, right?
oh yes.
10 years old. And then I'll show you something that is not as cute. This is Cutest Little Scarecrow in the World, and her dad
Oh.
ended up in even more newspapers. So that was Ozstravaganza 1994, and I submit these to you as my geek cred, basically.
So the Bugle editorship, this is kind of a dream come true for you, isn't it?
Oh, it very much is. I mean, it's just like I told Tori, this is getting the Bugle 3 times a year was incredibly exciting for me when I was a kid. That issue Zoe held up from 1991, I remember just being really thrilled that, wow, they made peanut butter glasses, right? There was that article by Bill Beam, and I think that issue also has one on the Volkov, the Russian series by Stephen Teller. And I was like, whoa, they read Oz in Russia? Different kind of Oz? Oh my gosh. And I remember just like going around and reading that to anybody who would listen. So yeah, the Bugle was huge when I was a kid. It was so exciting. And fortunately, it's just as exciting now, or I don't know, I'd have to throw in the towel and go work for a Sherlock Holmes Society instead.
So how do you plan for the next issue? What sorts of things do you look for as the editor?
Well, I drink a lot of coffee. And no, I honestly do a lot of thinking about what it is we've never talked about before. And sometimes, sometimes people wonder why we don't run more about, say, the MGM movie, or more about Wicked, or more about just kind of the Oz books in the main. And the truth is that a lot of really amazing people came around before me and did a lot of great work on those things. So these days, my job is really to look at stuff that is either brand new, or that looks at older stuff in a new way, or unearths things from the past that we've never been able to talk about before. And I also get a lot of pitches from people. So I have certain writers that I go back to again and again who are very reliable and fonts of incredible knowledge. I also have people write in by email and they say, I'd really love to do an article on this, or I'm really interested in researching that. And that can often go in an entirely new and interesting direction. But I'm usually working ahead on up to 4 issues at once. So that's very much a constant tap dance of what goes where. And sometimes things start and they don't make it to the actual issues. But a lot of it's just kind of going out there, hunting up the ideas, and then finding the people.
You have done hundreds upon hundreds of articles for the Baum Bugle. Are there any certain like articles that you have done that stood out, and are there any personal favorites of articles that you did?
Well, there are lots and lots that stand out to me. And I really don't have any favorites. I think whatever I'm working on at the moment is my favorite. And I've just finished putting together an issue which is full of really interesting and different material. Some of it's pretty surprising. And so that's very much at the forefront of my mind right now. But I don't think there's ever an issue I work on that I don't think is pretty incredible, and is filled with really fun and smart and interesting things. So yeah, it's hard for me to really pinpoint anything specific because they're all so good.
That's all. That's also everyone has their own unique one, I guess. So now, since we're going into the digital age, though, with COVID and everything like that, maybe is there a chance that maybe like for the ones that can't receive the physical copy, would a digital version of the Baum Bugle be in the works in the future?
Sure. Well, that's certainly something we've talked about before, a digital bugle, and I think it's something we're always thinking about. Some of you who are watching may remember that last year when lockdown was just starting, we became very concerned that an issue of ours was not going to make it out to the public without several months delay. And we actually worked really hard to get a digital version of that issue out to everyone. And as it turns out, there was only a couple of weeks delay from our printer. But that was a really good experiment because it allowed us to sort of try it out and see how that worked. And what we learned were really a couple of things. One of which is that we still have a very significant portion of our readership who don't feel totally comfortable with the digital landscape. So for the foreseeable future, we will need to print a paper version no matter what we do. And the other thing is that we don't really have the infrastructure that a large business or a large publishing house would have to be able to deliver a digital bugle securely and on time to everybody at once. I think when we did it last year, our president, Jane Albright, ended up sending them almost individually to groups of 5 or 10 email addresses. So it's something we're really excited to look into, but we don't have really the resources and the manpower we would need to do it well right now.
Wow, that explains a lot. Hey, just makes you want to be a member of the Oz Club more.
Yeah, come
right?
on.
Well, I'm going to dive right into the questions and pretend that I don't know the answers to a lot of these.
Okay.
So my first one, I think would be of interest to a lot of people who don't know how the journalism business works or publication, because I know before I was part of your editorial staff, I didn't know a lot of what you do.
Yeah.
I think when people hear editor-in-chief, they get this concept that they just work with the words. They just work with editing the articles. So could you enlighten people who haven't had this experience exactly what an editor-in-chief does, especially in a small nonprofit where we have a more limited team than, say, an actual like national publication?
Right. Well, probably the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of remind everyone that it's a totally volunteer organization. So nobody's getting paid for anything they do. Not me, not you, not Jane, not anyone. And probably even though we're a sizable organization, I don't have an exact number, but it can only be dozens of people who are actually involved at the level of getting things done. Like a couple dozen, 3 dozen, something like that. It's not a lot of people. And so I wear a lot of different hats for the Bugle, really. As I was just talking about, I go out and I email people, I chase stories. I keep kind of abreast of what's going on in the Oz world. I look and see if there are any headlines. I talk to you if there are any news stories that have broken about things that are happening. I check in with regular writers and with kind of the old guard of the Oz Club to see if they know about anything new and interesting. Sometimes somebody puts a bug in my ear about a topic and I think, I could go talk to such and so about that. And so I do. I go and, have a little virtual coffee with them and talk. And I also do all the layout on the Bugle. So I get in there in InDesign and I put all the pages together, and it's a lot of reading and writing and computer time. I think I did my math here recently, and I put in about 15 hours a week on the Bugle. But it's a lot more than simply editing finished documents. And certainly when it comes to writers, some writers have a history with professional writing, and they can turn in something to me, and I kind of talk with them about little tiny things, and we can pretty much put out there. Sometimes I'm working with brand new writers who've never written anything long before, and I think my record there is that we've taken something to an 8th draft. It turned out great, but that was 8 drafts later. So sometimes these things take a really long time to gestate, from the first time we talk about it to months and months later that it ends up coming out in the Bugle. Sometimes more than a year later. So it's a long process.
Wow. That's even like I said, I kind of have an idea of what the behind the scenes looks like, but you are always so here and there. Like that's kind of my first look even at what all you do to make these Bugles happen. And I mean, they come out, if I may use the term, flawless. I think they always look great and polished. And I think a lot of people probably are under the assumption that we do have a full professional paid staff.
Yeah.
So we make magic with our volunteers.
No, it's me, and Jane knows a couple of cool little things to make things looking extra slick that I don't know about. And after that, there's like maybe 10 proofreaders, and that's about it. That's all there is. But just this morning, I sent an email back to somebody who's writing something not just for a year from now, but probably about a year and a half from now. So it really can be a very long, drawn out process, but a fun process.
Yeah. And so going back to, talking about making magic happen and all that, Garrett asked earlier if this was like kind of your dream position. So going on with dreams, is there any dream project you have for the Bugle, whether that be a feature, a special edition, or a supplement, or just any kind of long-term project that you would love to leave as your legacy with the Bugle?
We're into legacy now? Okay.
I work in nonprofit and legacy planning. Sorry.
Sure. I think I'm always interested in looking into the corners of things that we haven't examined before. And I don't mean that in a really prurient way. Just that particularly for your and my generation, Zoe, there's a lot of things that we grew up with in Oz that we took for granted. And that it would be really exciting to kind of delve in more into how it worked or how it came to be. So for instance, the Return to Oz issue that I worked on last year with the Walt Disney Archives, that was kind of the beginning of that thinking, is what are the things that have happened in the late 20th century that the Bugle really didn't cover at the time, often because that wasn't where the interest was on the part of the people running it then, which is fine. But now that we're here and we're people like you and me, and we think about those things, let's look at the cartoons that came out in the 80s and 90s. Let's look at the film projects that never got off the ground. Let's look at some of those things that, again, that we've heard about, or that happened, but that we didn't know there was a story behind. But let's see if there was a story about that. And that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in looking at the older stuff. It's not that I'm not interested in looking at the books. The Oz books are, at the end of the day, the closest thing to my heart. But a lot of really talented people have written about those. And I'm always looking for something that could be new and interesting and surprising for our audience. So yeah, I think if I have any legacy, I would hope that it's looking at things that other people hadn't looked at before, and doing so in a way that's really credible. I come from both a journalism and an academic background, and so it's important to me that when we do research pieces that they be appropriately credited in Chicago style, which the Bugle has used off and on for many years, but now we use in a more consistent way. because what we do in the Bugle, and this really does speak to your legacy comment, what we do in the Bugle is forever, right? There are going to be people coming along in 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years looking at our bugles, and they may only know us by what we put in the Bugle. That may be the only way they know our names. And so it's important to me that when we put something in the Bugle, that it's for keeps, that it was worth putting there. As far as I'm aware, the Library of Congress still keeps a collection of the Baum Bugle. So your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, that might be how they remember you and how they remember me is through these silly little Oz things that we did. So let's make them good, right?
Absolutely.
Sarah, I just want to begin by complimenting you. I am the oldest person here today, so I have been collecting, I think, Baum Bugles the longest, and I just want to tell you that yours, and when you came on as editor-in-chief, you really upped the ante. Things improved. Things got more beautiful, more dynamic. You brought things back that had gone away, and I just feel like what you've done, you're sort of like the dream editor-in-chief for this project. I hope you stay on forever. But I want to ask you, what are some of the creative improvements that you actually brought to the publication? I know what they are, but I hope you would share with everyone what they are when you became editor-in-chief.
Sure. Well, if I don't mention anything, feel free to bring it up and make me feel even better about myself. But yeah, one of the things I was just telling Zoe about is that we really do try very hard to include good citations for all our research pieces now. It's important to me that we have that credibility going forward into the future. So that's one thing that, and it took me a couple issues to get there, but that's something we have now as a standard. The other thing that we do now that I'm really, I think is pretty essential is we have these beautiful color covers. I know, and Ryan, that the Baum Bugle is not just our chief membership benefit of the Oz Club. It is how we sell the Oz Club to people out in the world. We take the Baum Bugle to festivals. We take it to Oz events. We have a few issues of these every issue at the various Oz museums and stores. And so it's important to me that the 8-year-olds of the world can see this from across the room and say, wow, that looks really interesting. I really want to read it. Please, can I have it? So every issue to me needs to have a really nice color cover that kind of jumps out and says it wants to be your friend. So yeah, those are two things I've done. I've also unified the interior. I worked with an artist to bring some consistent, just kind of internal style to the Bugle, which I believe helps pull it together. Just little things like that, little things that I think help make us look like the really incredible, really dignified and fun organization that we are.
Yeah, I agree. I think you did really visually improve it so much. I mean, it looks much more like an actual magazine or journal you'd see on newsstands sold beyond outside of a club membership. I love your new title. I love your new font, and the layout has also changed. And I also love how you worked with an artist, and maybe let's give him a shout out right here if you can.
Sure. This is Mark Manley.
To create new characters and really concentrated on which is brilliant, inclusivity and diversity. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I just think it's really important that Oz be open for every child everywhere, and welcoming and accessible. And while John R. Neal's Oz is my Oz, it's the Oz that lives in my head, and the Oz that I'm always going to be attracted to, that's because I'm a 40-year-old woman, and those are the books I grew up on. I don't really expect most 8-year-olds to look at something with John R. Neal's extremely Victorian images and find a relationship between those and the world they live in. So it's been really important to me to represent the Oz characters in the Gazette, and sometimes in the Bugle as well, through Mark Manley's art, which shows a wide range of racial diversity, because Oz really should be for every child.
I love that so much. And you and I have talked offline about the differences in mission between what we do here at Oz Talk and what you do at the Bugle. But we're both products of the Oz Club.
Yes.
Why don't you share, though? Obviously, we're different media. What is your mission with the Bugle?
Oh, that's a really good question, Ryan. What is my mission with the Bugle? I think my mission, or at least the mission that I think about, is to honor the life, the work, and the legacy of L. Frank Baum and the authors who succeeded him. And when I say that, I mean, of course, always returning to his own stories, but also the different ways that they have impacted culture all over the world and across now 121 years, or sometimes actually a little bit more than 121 years. And to function not only as a journal of record, because I think the journal of record is an important part of the Bugle, that kind of accounting of what's going on in the Oz world, but also kind of looking forward to where Oz might go next and what people are doing around the world, online, everywhere, to be kind of both looking back and looking forward at the same time. I think Oz is an amazing catalyst for all kinds of creativity. Okay, so yeah, I want to be able to really dig deep and share that kind of thing with everyone as much as I can. And of course, your medium is video, and that puts you in a unique place to talk with people in a really like one-to-one and very timely. Yeah, very casual, very timely. You know, you can talk to someone at the premiere of something, right? Perfect. Generally, for my medium in the Bugle, where it's written down, that's a great medium for analysis, for looking back, for talking to somebody who did something 40 years ago, right? And asking them to reflect on it or share their memories of it. So really, we do kind of two different forms of historicism, and they're both really important, particularly for something like this, which is, you know, Oz is a many-tentacled beast. It goes in so many different directions, and it doesn't matter who you are as an Oz fan, you can't follow all of them, right? And you probably only have 2 or 3 that are like your special favorites. But you and I, you know, as the people kind of collecting that stuff, we have to remember all those different people and all those different interests. And so it puts us in a unique position, kind of at the heart of the circus, that is really fun, but also I think has a lot of responsibility to it.
So let's talk about the current issue. This is fantastic, Sarah. You got to give me a preview of it, and I was amazed not only by the artwork, but your article in it and some of the other articles, but yours specifically. You've uncovered something that many people who seem to know so much about Oz might not yet have known about. Why don't you tell us about Yellow Bricks Road?
Oh, I'd love to, Ryan, but to tell you about Yellow Bricks Road, I have to ask everybody to go somewhere with me. And I need you to take your hands, right? I need you to touch your fingers just like this. Make an O. Make an O. Touch your thumbs together, right? I was going to say, Ryan, you're not doing this. All right. So every day at this exact time, the Wizard of Oz looks through his magic picture at his friends in Kansas and New York and California and Texas and in all the other fine places of the world, because those are the fine places of the world, right? If you wish to join Dorothy, Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, Tin Man, and the wonderful Wizard of Oz himself in adventures beyond all dreaming, now is the time. Show him the sign. The time is now. All right, so we're all making the sign, the secret sign, and this is how every episode of the Yellow Bricks Road would have begun. It was a TV series that was developed by Filmation Associates. You may know them better as the creators of the Star Trek animated series, of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, of eventually He-Man and She-Ra, the original ones. they pitched a live action Oz-based show for the fall of 1980.
They also did Journey Back to Oz.
They also did Journey Back to Oz many, many years earlier. And really, Journey Back to Oz was the reason Filmation became a company. It was an existing set of audio tracks that they came together to make animation for. And apparently, they really had an affinity for Oz. I think a lot of it had to do with it being a known property that was in the public domain. And also, Lou Scheimer, who was kind of the executive in control of everything by the time of this show, he had a daughter. And he was always looking for shows that would have kind of a spunky girl in the lead. And of course, Oz, we know all about spunky girls in Oz, right? So yeah, I've actually got right here this is a little bit of Bugle kind of memorabilia here. This is a cover proof for this new issue. And if you've got the new issue at home, you'll notice it looks very slightly different from this. The font on the front cover is a different color. And the picture's a little bit rearranged. And that's because when I have these made, I'm usually testing out cover designs. So the cover proofs often look very slightly different from what you get in the mail. But you can see here a wonderful example of Robert Klein's concept art. It's a little bit MGM-y, but not quite. And if you turn to your issue, or if you get your issue, if you sign up, you'll see even more examples of concept art inside. Yeah, just like that, including some characters who are not from the first book at all. They're from later Oz books. So
this was cool. It looks like in the 80s it would have been live action.
Live action.
And it was a cross between education and entertainment. And I just wonder, like, who would I be today had the show actually been on? Because I'm sure I would have been obsessed with it and wanted to see every episode and rushed home from school to watch it. Yeah. Done The Secret Sign as a child and been really into it. So I had never heard about this. I love that you uncovered it. And I love that this is the kind of thing that the Baum Bugle, we can only get in the Baum Bugle, you know? And so, you're not only a journalist, but you're an investigative journalist in uncovering this. Garrett and Zoe, like myself, you were privy to an advanced copy of this. Did you guys have any questions about it for Sarah?
I didn't. I'll be completely honest. I haven't gotten to dive into that article yet. I was really taken by the Woozy article. Like, I was really excited to see, because I'm a big fan of the whole world pre-MGM. So to have an article that's all about, like, this is the first Wizard of Oz toy that was made and marketed was so cool.
Yep. That's another really great article. That's Nate Barlow's article. And he's uncovered some wonderful, wonderful promotional material from 1914, 1915, related to the wonderful wooden Woozy toy that was briefly distributed to promote the Oz Film Manufacturing Company. And I think if anybody out there likes that kind of early Hollywood stuff, the promotion and the journalism that was going on at the time, we have some simply wonderful clippings. So many, in fact, that we have a special little scrapbook section that is nothing but clippings in this issue of the Bugle. And I think that's pretty exciting too.
So Sarah, I've read through what you sent, and I think your favorite part about it and mine are probably the same thing. But what's your favorite part about what you uncovered with Yellow Bricks Road?
Oh man, what I really love about Yellow Bricks Road is just the incredible chutzpah of it. Because Filmation, I learned so much about Filmation, first of all, researching for this article. And they made shows out of nothing, right? They were so economical in what they did. And I think a lot of people kind of parody them for that now. Mm-hmm. But they really made incredible things out of nothing. And, you know, the budget sheet that I looked at for Yellow Bricks Road really was showing this incredible weekday show for just a few $1,000s. And I don't really know what that would have looked like, but just the amazing, Ryan's showing some images. That's great. Yeah. The amazing chutzpah to be able to do it and to say, we're going to make this entire fantasy world out of, like, you know, tin cans and some string. And I kind of love that. I love the scripts are written in this really hopeful tone, which we have quite a few quotes in the article. But, my favorite thing is that it describes the wizard at one point. The wizard is kind of the co-host along with Dorothy. And it says he's charming and eccentric and a bit of a fraud. He could be Dick Van Dyke. I think that's so wonderful. It's just... It's one of those Oz projects that like you learn a little something about it, because I've read one paragraph about it before. You learn what it was actually like, and you just sit there for a minute and you're like, wow, I can't believe this almost existed. Mm-hmm. It's almost more fun to learn about than for it to have been an actual thing. And I love stuff like that. I love kind of crazy, not weird for weird's sake, but just like you never would have expected that.
Oh yeah. So whether or not you are Dick Van Dyke, what's the best way for somebody who wants to contribute to the Bugle? What's the best way for them to do that?
Right. Well, maybe you are Dick Van Dyke, or maybe you're one of Dick Van Dyke's relatives and can tell me more about this. Or maybe you can talk about any other aspect of Oz that just really intrigues you. What you should do is you should absolutely get on the Oz Club website and go to the Baum Bugle section, click that email link to me, and send me like a good one-page pitch, something that really describes what it is you want to talk about, and why, and how you think that would go. Maybe if you know of any research sources, tell me what those would be, and just kind of generally open up a conversation, because the best thing, the thing that helps me the most as the editor is being able to kind of sort out, like, where could we fit this in and who would this appeal to? So although I do occasionally work with writers who have already written a whole article, it's really best if you get in on the ground with me, to where we can kind of figure out what the parameters are going to be and how long it's going to be, and kind of the full scope of it before you actually go off and write. So yeah, just a one-page pitch. Doesn't have to be fancy. Get that off to me, and basically, if you sit down and say to yourself, oh, no one would ever be interested in this, well, they probably would be interested in that. So just do it.
Very cool. And Sarah, lastly, we've talked about the Bugle, but you're also doing something else that's really cool, and you are digitizing board games, so physical games, and you're making them available online through a platform. Tell us about that, specifically Wizard of Oz games that we could play together. We recently did an Oz game episode.
I heard about that. Well, I have a large collection of vintage Oz-related board games. I love board gaming, and COVID happened, you might remember, and we suddenly found ourselves with lots of free time we weren't expecting, all of us. Well, the way I started to fight that was to start digitizing board games. So, for instance, I did this one, okay, good old Return to Oz board game, and let's see, I did this one, Off to See the Wizard. That's a good one, very pretty. Great Chuck Jones art. And I even did Dick Martin's Ozmopolitan cards. I've done about 6 or 7 of these so far. And they're all vintage games. They're all out of print. And my goal is to get them all digitized and in a way that they are playable by you, me, over a client called Steam, which anybody who's a gamer probably knows what Steam is. But there's a program within it called Tabletop Simulator that you can buy that allows people to simulate board games right on their computer. But my thought is that I will digitize these and we'll be able to host gaming nights within, say, our Oz Club Zoom events or our convention events. And so they wouldn't be available so much to the public, but they would be available within those parameters. And so right now, like I said, I'm doing this. I'm on my 7th or 8th board game, and I really need play testers. So if you want to be a play tester for various very silly Wizard of Oz board games, I want you to add me as a friend on Steam. This is my friend code. and you can play some wacky Wizard of Oz board games with me. It'll be great.
I love it. And Sarah Crotzer, I love you, editor-in-chief of the Baum Bugle. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are an absolute delight. What you're doing again with the Bugle is fantastic. And we're so happy that you were able to take the time to join us today. Anyone that's watching, please like, subscribe to the Oz Club's YouTube channel, share this video with your friends, let them know about Oz Talk, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about in an upcoming episode. I know we have some great things coming up, but there's always an endless amount of Oz topics. So let us know what your favorite topics are. And in the meantime, Zoe, take it away. Let everyone know how they can join the Oz Club.
Alrighty, well, if you want to join the Oz Club to get your new issues of the Baum Bugle that talk about things like Yellow Bricks Road and the wonderful wooden woozy, visit ozclub.org. While you're there, if you want to get some vintage copies of the Baum Bugle, make sure that you check out the online shop, which is right there at that same website. And we have so many wonderful things, back issues of the Baum Bugle, Oz books that are otherwise unavailable, as well as maps of the land of Oz. So make sure that you visit ozclub.org, get a membership, and do some shopping while you're there.